Upgrade your old habits. Super motivation is much more difficult to achieve when we are held back mentally by bad habits. Trying to move towards the life we want while dragging along our bad habits was described in the Scottish rock group Dale Amitree's song lyrics. It's like driving with the brakes on, it's like swimming with your boots on. But here's the catch: bad habits simply cannot be broken, nor can they be gotten rid of. Ask the millions who continue to try. They always end up, in the words of Richard Brautigan, trying to shovel mercury with a pitchfork because our bad habits exist for good reasons. They are there to do something for us, even if that something ends up being self-destructive. Down deep, even a bad habit is trying to make us operate better. People who smoke are trying, even through their addiction, to do something beneficial. Perhaps to breathe deeply and relax. Such breathing is needed to balance stress. So their smoking is a way in which they are trying to make themselves better. Bad habits are like that. They are best on a perceived benefit. That's why they are so hard to just get rid of. That's why habits must be respected and understood before they can be transformed. What created the habit must be built upon, not killed. We must go to the beneficial impulse that drives that habit and then expand on that to make the habit grow from something bad into something good. Let's take drinking as an example. I have known people who used to be drunk all the time who are now sober all the time. How did they do it? Couldn't we just say that they just got rid out of their drinking habit? Not really, because without exception, the recovered people I now replace their drinking with something else. Taking all of one's courage, relaxation, and spirituality from a bottle of alcohol is a very damaging habit. But to simply eliminate it leads to even worse problems. Shakes, DTS, fear, dread, paranoia, a total void. People who join Alcoholics Anonymous, however, replace their false courage once found in a bottle of alcohol with real courage found in the meeting rooms of AA. The completely artificial sense of spirituality formerly found in a tumbler of spirits is replaced by the true and deeply personal spirituality found in working the 12-step program of enlightenment. The superficial but highly emotional relationships the alcoholic had made in his favorite bars are replaced by real friendships. Replacement is powerful because it works, and where bad habits are concerned, it's the only thing that works. I have known people who quit smoking without intending to. They took up running or some form of regular aerobic exercise, and soon the breathing and relaxation they were getting from the exercise made the smoking feel bad to their bodies. They quit smoking because they had introduced a replacement. People who died have the same experience. It isn't staying away from fattening food that works. It's introducing a regular diet of delicious, healthy food that works. It's replacement. Self-consciously, you don't think your bad habits are bad, and that's because they are feeling a perceived need. So, the way to strengthen yourself is to identify the need and honor it. Honor the need by replacing the current habit with one that is healthier and more effective. Replace one habit, and soon you will be motivated to replace another. Paint your masterpiece today. Think of your day as a blank artist canvas. If you go through your day passively accepting whatever other people and circumstances splatter on your canvas, you will more than likely see a mesh where art could be. If the mesh troubles your sleep, your next new day will begin in a state of fatigue and mild confusion. From such a state, your canvas will be splattered all the more with shapes you don't like and colors you never choose. Thinking of your day as a painter's canvas will allow you to be more conscious of what is happening to you when you float your mind with nothing but internet gossip, commercials on the radio, the latest murder trial, your spouse's criticism of his politics, and pessimistic musical lyrics. If you all allow yourself to step back far enough to realize and truly see that your daily canvas is filling up with all these negative things, a certain freedom occurs. It's the freedom to choose something better. The more conscious we are of our freedom to paint whatever we want on our canvas, the less we go through life as a victim of circumstances. Many of us aren't even aware of our own victim status. We read whatever's on the coffee table, listen to whatever on the car radio, eat whatever's handy, scan whatever's on the internet, talk to whoever calls us on the phone, and watch whatever's on the television, often too passive to even click the remote control. We must be aware that we have it in us to change all that. We can paint course. We can paint our day our way. The best time management or day painting course I ever took was taught by Dennis Dayton. His seminar's main point is that we can't manage time. We can only manage ourselves. Clear the clutter from your mind, Dayton says, and remove the obstacles to greater success. Well, most time management courses feel like courses in engineering. Dayton has captured the spirit of the artist in his teaching. His prescriptions for managing your day all stem from goal creation and living the visions you create. Wake up and visualize your day as a blank canvas. Ask yourself, who is the artist today? Blind circumstance or me? If I choose to be the artist, how do I want to paint my day? When Bobby Fischer prepared for his World Championship chess match with Boris Spassky, he's prepared by swimming laps underwater every day. He knew that as the chess matches wore on into the late hours, the players with the most oxygen going to his brain would have the mental advantage. So he built his chess game by building his lungs. When he defeated Spassky, many were surprised by his astonishing wit and mental staying power, especially late in the matches when both players should have been weary and burnt out. What kept Bobby Fischer alert wasn't caffeine or amphetamines. It was his breathing. General George Patton once gave a lecture to his troops on brain power. He too knew the connection between breathing and thinking. In a war, as in peace, a man needs all the brains he can get. Shed Patton. Nobody ever had too many brains. Brains come from oxygen. Oxygen comes from the lungs, where the air goes when we breathe the oxygen in the air gets into the blood and travels to the brain, and fool can double the size of his lungs. I learned about Patton's passion for teaching his troops deep breathing from Porter Williamson. I had once written a few political radio and television commercials that got Mr. Williamson's attention. So he called me and asked me to lunch one day because he had identified himself as the author of Patton's Principles. I eagerly accepted his invitation, having coincidentally read the marvelous book a few weeks earlier. Williamson had served in the army for many years as Patton's most trusted legal advisor. Williamson told me many stories about serving with Pattons and how truly extraordinary a motivator the general was. Most of the Patton quotes in this book come from Williamson's own memories of his service with the great general. Williamson told me about how he himself had lost his leg to bone cancer and how the doctors had erroneously forecasted his death twice. His inner strength, he said, often came from the inspiration he received in his days of serving with Patton. Frequently, General Patton would stop at my desk, recalled Williamson, and ask, "How long you've been sitting at the desk? Get up and get out of here. Your brain stops working after you sit in a swivel chair for 20 minutes. Keep the body moving around so that juices will run to the right places. It will be good for the brain. If you sit in that chair too long, all of your brain power will be in your shoes. You cannot keep your mind active when your body is inactive." That one principle, an active mind cannot exist in an inactive body, become Bobby Fischer's secret weapon in winning the World Championship of Chess. Who would leave guessed that swimming underwater would make you a better chess player? Certainly not the overweight, worn-out chess genius, Boris Spassky. Sometimes all you need is the air that you breathe to motivate yourself. Going for a run or a walk or simply deep breathing gives the brain the fuel it feeds on to be newly refreshed and creative. Bring on a good coach. After a rare disappointing round on the golf course, Tiger Woods will often take a golf lesson. When I first heard about this, I asked myself, who could give Tiger Woods a lesson in golf? But that was before I ever really understood the value of coaching. The person who taught me that value was a young business consultant named Steve Hardishin. Hardishin taught me this: Tiger takes a lesson not because his coach is a better player who can give advice and tips, but because his coach can stand back from Tiger Woods and see him objectively. Steve Hardishin had created an art form of coming into corporations and seeing things objectively. In fact, his perception ran deeper than that. He had near psychic power to see what was missing. It was a gift he could also apply to individuals, but only if they were ready for the rigors of his coaching. I used to teasingly call one of his illustrative personal stories The Probable of the Mission. As a young missionary for his church in England, Hardishin broke all records for enrolling congregants. He contrasted his own method with that the other missionaries. Well, the other would rush out and knock on doors all day. Hardishin would spend the first part of his day planning and plotting his activities. By creating his day before it happened, he was able to combine visits, economize on travel time, and increase the number of enrollment conversations in a given day. He also used his creative planning time to set up intra-neighborhood referrals for himself so that many of his visits came with a reference. The other missionaries were very active, but they were focused on the activity, not the result. They were in the business of knocking on doors, the chairs. The records he set for enrollment were no accident. He planned things that way. Steve helped me understand something that lives inside of all of us, something he called the voice. When you wake up in the morning, the voice is there right away, telling you that you are too tired to get up or too sick to go to work. During a sales meeting, when you are just about to say something bold to a client, the voice might tell you to cool it, hold back, be careful. The trick is, said Steve, to not ignore or deny the existence of the voice, because it's there in all of us. No one is free of the voice. However, you don't have to obey the voice. You can talk back to the voice. And when you really get good, you can even talk trash to the voice. Make fun of it, ridicule it, point out how stupid it is. And once you get into that way of debating your own doubts, you start to take back control of your life. Many times I will be in the middle of a large business project and are asked to meet with Steve for an hour. After he listened for a few minutes, he would almost invariably see right away what was missing in my behavior. Like a great golf teacher watching Tiger Woods' back swing, he would say, "Are you willing to accept some coaching on this?" And I would eagerly say yes. Then he would tell me truthfully, sometimes ruthlessly, what he saw. I didn't always like what he saw, but I always grew stronger from talking about it. Hardishan coaching was so jolting that sometimes it reminded me of an incident that happened to me when I was a boy playing Little League Baseball. I had injured my knee in a play at third base, and when the game was over, the knee was swollen and my entire leg was stiff. As I sat on the bench with my leg straight out in front of me, a doctor whose son was on our team was kneeling down by my legs. As my father looked on, "I would like you to bend your leg now," he said to me as his hands gently held my swollen knee. "I can't," I told him. "You can't?" he asked, looking up at me. "Why can't you?" "Because I'm tired and it really hurts." The doctor looked at me for a second and then said simply, but gently, then hurt yourself." I was startled by his request, hurt myself on purpose, but then without saying anything, I slowly bent my leg. Yes, there was a tremendous pain, but that didn't matter. I was still mesmerized by his request. The doctor massaged my knee with his fingers and nodded to my father that everything would be okay. I would have to have x-rays and the usual precautionary exam, but he saw nothing seriously wrong for now. But I was still aware that something very big had just happened to me. After a boyhood that was characterized by avoiding pain and discomfort of any kind, all of a sudden I saw that I could hurt myself if I needed to, and that I could do it calmly without waiting an eye. Perhaps I wasn't the coward I would always thought I was. Perhaps there was as much courage in me as in anyone else, and it was all a matter of being willing to call on it. It was a defining incident in my life, and it was not this similar to the way Steve Hardison as a coach has required that I call on things inside me that I didn't know I had. One time I was having a hard time enrolling people into seminars and doing my prospective calls on the phone. Steve grabbed the phone and started calling people and signing them up. Then he accidentally dialed a wrong number and reached some mechanic at a car repair garage. Most people would have apologized at that point and hung up and dialed again, but rather than waste the call, Steve introduced himself and then stayed on the phone until the mechanic had signed up for a seminar. Harrison is a gifted and courageous public speaker, a respectful and relentless salesperson, a talented athlete, and a committed family man and church member. The kind of guy who used to make me sick. I could write an entire book about Steve Harrison's remarkable work in coaching and consulting, and someday I just might. Examples of ways that he caused me to higher level of performance are plentiful, but I think the greatest thing he has taught me is the value of coaching itself. Once you open yourself up to being coached, you begin to receive the same advantages enjoyed by great actors and athletes everywhere. When you open yourself up to coaching, you don't become weaker, you grow stronger, you become more responsible for changing yourself. In The Road Less Traveled, M. Scott Peck writes, the problem of distinguishing what we are and what we are not responsible for in this life is one of the greatest problems of human existence. We must possess the willingness and the capacity to suffer continual self-examination. The best coaches show us how to examine ourselves. It takes courage to ask for coaching, but the rewards can be great. The best moments come when your coach helps you do something you have previously been afraid to do. When Harrison would recommend that I do something I was afraid to do, I would say, I don't know if I could do that. So don't be you. He would say, if you can't do that, then be someone, someone else, be someone who could do it. Be De Niro, be Bruce Lee, be anybody. I don't care as long as you do it. Coaching's contribution to my life is illustrated in these words by French philosopher Guillaume Apollinaire. Come to the A's and said, they said, we are afraid. Come to the A's, he said. They came, he pushed them, and they flew. You can get coaching anytime. If coaching is appropriate for your golf or tennis game, it is even more appropriate for the game of life. Ask someone to be honest with you and coach you for a while. Let them check your swing. Let them tell you what they say. It's a courageous things to do. It will always lead to more self-motivation and growth. Try to sell your home. Once, when Steve Harrison and I were discussing a few of my old habits that were holding me back from realizing my business goals, I blurted out of him, but why do I do those things? If I know they hold me back, why do I continue to do them? Because they are home to you. He said they feel like home. When you do those things, you do them because that's what you are comfortable doing, and so you make yourself right at home doing them. And as they say, there's no place like home. Home can be an ugly place if it's not kept up and consciously made beautiful. Home can be a dark, damp prison, smelling of bad habits and laziness, but we still don't want to leave it, no matter how bad it gets, because we think we are safe there. However, when we inspect the worn-out house more closely, we can see that the safety we think we are experiencing is pure self-limitation. It's very hard to leave home. Many of us try and fail many times. Noel Paul Stoke wrote a hauntingly beautiful song called The House Song, which captures this feeling. The opening words are, "This house goes on sale every Wednesday morning, and is taken off the market in the afternoon. After grasping Hardison's metaphor of home, I immediately saw that I needed to move out of my house. I needed to move off in the neighborhood. I needed a better home, a home that contained habits that would keep me focused on goal-oriented activity. Hardison helped coach me in that direction until the new activities began to feel like where I should have been living all along. Hardison's metaphor of home as the equivalent of old disempowering habits has stayed with me for a long time. Recently, while I was putting together a tape of motivational music to play in my car, I included the energetic I'm Going Home by Alvin Lee, and 10 years after, as I drove around listening to it turned off all the way, I thought about what Hardison taught. I let the song be about the new home I would always be in the process of moving to. Don't be afraid to leave the psychic home you are in. Get excited about building a larger, newer, happier home in your mind and then go live there. In Colin Wilson's brilliant but little known, out of print novel Necessary Doubt, he created Gustav Newman, a fascinating character who made many discoveries about human beings. At one point, Newman says, I came to realize that people build themselves personalities as they build houses to protect themselves from the world. They become its prisoners, and most people are in such a hurry to hide inside their four walls that they build the house too quickly. Identify the habits that keep you trapped. Identify what you have decided is your final personality and accept that it might be a hasty construction built only to keep you safe from risk and growth. Once you have done that, you can leave. You can get the blueprints out and create the home you really want. Get your soul to talk. We've always been a little nervous culturally about talking to ourselves. We usually associate it with insanity, but it was Plato who said that his definition of thinking was the soul talking to itself. If you really want to get your life worked out, there is no one better to talk to than yourself. No other person has as much information about your problems, and no other person knows your skills and capabilities better. And there is no one else who can do more for you than yourself. A lot of people in the motivational and psychological professions recommend affirmations. You choose a sentence to say, such as, every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better, and repeat it whether or not you think it's true. While affirmations are a good first step to reprogramming, I prefer conversations. Conversations work faster. The two most inspirational guidelines to productive self-conversational exercise are in Martin Seligman's Learned Optimism and Nathaniel Branden's The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. Seligman offers ways to dispute your own pessimism and create the habit of optimistic thinking. Brandon offers provocative sentence stem for you to complete. Rather than brainlessly parroting, I'm getting better and better to myself, it makes a longer lasting impression when I logically argue the case and win. With enough back and forth conversation, I can prove to myself that I am getting better. Proof beats the parrot every time. It's one thing to try to hypnotize myself through a repetition of words to accept something as true. And it's quite another to convince myself that it is true. Brandon suggests that we get our creative thinking going each morning by asking ourselves 2 questions. What's good in my life? And 2, what is there still to be done? Most people don't talk to themselves at all, though they listen to the radio, watch TV, gossip, and feel up on the words and thoughts of other people all day long. But it's impossible to indulge in that kind of activity and also get motivated. Motivation is something you talk yourself into. Promise the moon. One frightening and effective way to motivate yourself is to make an unreasonable promise. To go to someone you care about, either personally or professionally, and promise them something really big, something that will take all the effort and creativity you have got to make happen. When President John Kennedy promised that America would put a man on the moon, the power of that thrilling promise alone energized all of NASA for the entire time it took to accomplish the amazing feat. In his book about the Apollo 13 mission, Lost Moon, astronaut Jim Lovell called Kennedy's original promise outrageous, but it showed how effective being outrageous could be. In his book Passion, Profit, and Power, Marcel Slaver recalls seeing a billboard in Las Vegas put up by one of the casino owners who wanted to become a non-smoker. The billboard read, "If you see me smoking in the next 90 days, I'll pay you 100 million. Can you see the power in that promise? A couple of years ago, I promised my children that I would send them to camp in Michigan. They had been to the camp near Traverse City before and loved it. When you live during the year in Arizona, there is something magical about the water and emerald forest of northern Michigan. It was an expensive camp, but when I made the promise, I was doing well financially and I was confident that they could all go. Then, as the summer neared, I would run short of money and had to rearrange my priorities. My speaking schedule had replaced much of the commissioned shelling I was doing, and it looked like a camp might not be in the picture. I remember specifically talking to my boy Bobby, who was 8 years old at that time, about how times were temporarily hard and how camp didn't look like a good possibility anymore this year. He was in the front seat of the car, and I'll never forget for as long as I live the look on his face. He said very softly, so softly that I could barely hear him, "But you promised." He was right. I didn't say I would try. I didn't say it was a goal. I promised. And the feelings I had at that moment were so overwhelming that I finally said to him, "Yes, I did promise. And because you reminded me that it was a promise, I will say to you right now that you are going to camp. I'll do what it takes. I'm sorry that I forgot it was a promise." The first thing I did was change jobs, and my first condition on accepting my new job was that my bonus for signing was the exact amount of money it took to send my children to camp. It was done. Make somebody's day. To basketball coach John Wooden, making each day your masterpiece was not just about selfish personal achievement. In his autobiography, They Call Me Coach, he mentioned an element vital to creating each day. You cannot live a perfect day, he said, without doing something for someone who will never be able to repay you. I agree with that, but there is a way to make sure you can be repaid, and that's doing something for someone who won't even know what did it. This gets into our theory I have had all my life, that you can create luck in your life, not from the idea that luck is needed for success, because it isn't, but from the idea that luck can be a welcome addition to your life. You can create luck for yourself by creating it for someone else. If you know about someone who is hurting financially and you arrange for a few $100s to arrive at their home and they don't even know who you are, then you have made them lucky. By making someone lucky, something will then happen in your own life that also feels like pure luck. I can't explain why this happens, and I have no scientific basis for it. So all I can say is try it a few times and see if you aren't as star-led as I have been at the results. It doesn't have to be money either. We have a lot of other things to give, always. When you get lucky, you will get more motivated because you feel like the universe is more on your side. Experiment with this a little. Don't be imprisoned by cynicism posing as a rationality on this subject. See what happens to you when you make other people get lucky.